When the JPA was formed in 1971, they then went about hiring a management team, and Tom Albert came up from Orange County Transit to take the helm of the Monterey Peninsula Transit, and he hired Frank Latansky as his assistant. I've read some articles about him. He was a very practical manager. There were articles I've read about our neighbor to the north, Santa Cruz Metro at that time. They were making a statement. They were going to war with the automobile. And in the same article, they interviewed Tom, and he said, no, we're not at war with anyone. There's room for cars, and there are room for buses. Some people will drive cars, and some people will take the bus, and we're here to serve the people who are going to take the bus.
He was young for his age, for the role that he has as GM, but he was a really smart guy. And his personality was such that most people probably were intimidated by him. He was not really an easy guy to get to know, but really prominently recognized as being accomplished and very smart at what he did. So he was the guy, along with Frank Latansky, who at that point was the assistant general manager. It was the two of them that really were in the forefront of developing what became this amazing transit system that we know of today.
He designed the first system, the basis of which we still run today. Many of the routes, the Line 20, the Line 1, the Line 2, what are the Jazz routes today? Their bases go back to those routes that Tom originally developed. One of Tom Albert's projects was the rehabilitation of Bus 80 with donated resources and donated time of MST staff and mechanics, including, I think, Janet Madler. They completely rehabilitated the vehicle inside and out. Actually, Tom passed away very young, and Frank stepped in and managed the transition to bringing the city of Salinas in 1981 as the Monterey Salinas Transit Joint Powers Agency.
It was in June of 1974, Frank and I were moving down to Monterey because he had just gotten a job as assistant manager then. And MST needed, or actually was Monterey Transit at that time, needed a bus. And so there was an El Paso bus up in San Francisco that they bought or rented, and they told us that we could drive it down. So we had a friend of Frank's help us drive it down, and we moved everything from our apartment, our bikes, everything, down here. And it was like, oh no, the neighbors were like, oh no, here comes a bunch of hippies.
And I did have the opportunity to work with Frank as well, our past general manager, and he had a lot of wisdom. One of the things that he said early on in my career to me was that we hire people with the right customer service skills. We can teach anybody to drive, but the soft skills are the most important.
Kept it here all these years. Frank Latansky's birthday was right here, and says, "Hi, my name's Frank Latansky. Today's my birthday." And it's Frank Latansky right there. He was a really nice guy.
We would have parties at his house, and famous for his Halloween parties, and we were all there dressed in costume.
So, we take our breaks in the Gilly Room, and in this particular moment, Frank Latansky was the CEO of the company, and this particular person, his name was Don, who we used to work with, was laying back on a couch, and with his legs kicked up, Frank Latansky walks in. We all looked. Frank Latansky, "Hey, what are you doing? This is not your home. You do this at home?" And the thing was, why it was so funny is because none of us told him. Yeah. None of us told him that he had walked in, because we were in shock to see him. Right. So we were like, ugh.
Yeah, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. There was a knock on my front door here, and it was the police. And as soon as I opened the door, because Frank was sound asleep, I could smell the smoke. And he said, "MST's on fire. Frank needs to get all the buses out of there."
It turned out it was an arson attempt. that completely destroyed the building. The administrative side of the building. The garage area was kept whole and was saved.
Oh gosh, they worked out of 2 buses and used those as offices, and they kept the service going, even though everything was destroyed.
Linda Garcia, who was, to my recollection, the first female transit supervisor in MST history, had the routes and the buses and the dispatch schedule memorized in her head. And so while the building was being put out by the fire and an active fire in place, she was able to dispatch the drivers and the buses that morning without missing a single route, all from memory.
It felt like such a violation and just devastating to know that our facility, there was a fire there, and to walk in there and to smell the smoke and to be displaced during that time. It just felt like such a personal violation. But the fact that, you overcome adversity and you get stronger and you move forward, and that's what the agency did.
I discovered that there was a route to both Big Sur and Carmel Valley. And so as an avid backpacker and outdoor enthusiast, I was able to just jump on the MST, get connecting routes from Pacific Grove to Monterey Salinas Transit Plaza in downtown Monterey, jump on the number 22 with my backpack and go down the Big Sur coast. Simply get lost in the woods for a few days and then come out again to the trailhead at Pfeiffer State Park and be safely picked up there and enjoy them.
And so I was a driver for 5 years, and I don't remember exactly what year it was, but so Dana got on the bus, to be my future wife, which of course I didn't know at the time, got on the bus with a couple of her friends. And I think I just said initially, the first time they all got on, welcome them on board. And then little by little, Dana started riding with me more often. And I remember one of the first times that she rode, she got off the bus up on David Avenue by Forest and got off and immediately ran across the street in front of the bus. So then, of course, the next time she got on, I had to basically warn her, please don't run across, don't step in front of the bus. So one of our first experiences together was I basically had to correct her on, on a safety issue. Well, anyway, she obviously forgave me for doing that, even though she didn't, didn't really appreciate it much at the time.
I actually remember when they were installing the first route of MST out onto Carmel Valley Road into the village. And obviously back then, living all the way out here, it was sort of our sense of freedom that it allowed us to have. You kind of got to understand, back then, in the late 70s, early 80s, our parents acted like they were in the late 70s and early 80s, and that they weren't the helicopter parents we have nowadays, and we could kind of wander like we were able to do. And the last thing they wanted us to do was hitchhike. They were relieved that they had the MST coming out to Carmel Valley.
During my dad's time service here, anybody that knew him, saw him, would recognize him immediately because he had a white afro and a white beard, and he looked like Santa Claus, just a chocolate version of Santa Claus. And MST, recognizing that, thought, you know what, he could be Santa.
Every time people see us, oh, you work for MST, and then the next question, even when we are out there in our civilian clothing, do you know what time the line 20 is going to show up?
Yeah, literally, the Pope visited Monterey, and he was going to be going to say, and he was going to talk.
We were there at the MST facility, and you could see, the helicopters flying by, and it was just such an amazing moment.
The Pope visited, and all the roads were closed and everything. And then at the end of the day, they all pulled back in here. And that's how MST was throughout the whole years, is there was this heavy coordination of effort that had to take place for all these events. And
always a learning. You don't not learn at MST. There's always something new that comes along. So
The agency has always been forward-thinking and always in the forefront, whether it's through technology, whether it's through the things that they do and the services that they continue to provide to our community. Just think about all of the amazing work that you did during the pandemic.
Fires within our region, and most recently the winter storms that really affected some of our communities that are most disproportionately disadvantaged in our community of Pajaro, and that MST is really a community leader and a community partner.
I think MST has been good for this community in that we enable people who wouldn't have a place, have a way to get somewhere in a timely fashion, affordable.
It allows those the transportation to give them the resources they need to exist here in Monterey County.
I mean, when I first came into MST, it was a man's world. Kind of exciting to see where we're at now, where we have 50% is female.
the friendship around here is really good. A lot of people have each other's back, what makes people feel good and secure with each other.
Nothing
It's
runs here
something
without a
that's-
group effort.
It's something to be said about MST.
Maintenance, operations, and admin,
Yeah.
they all work
Yeah,
together.
and yeah.
As I was saying, the future is bright for MST, and I'm pretty sure that I'll be reading about it on the newspaper or something like that.
Got a feeling we're going to grow a lot more.